Archivalist Veltar had spent over 3 centuries cataloging the myths and legends of lesser civilizations, but none fascinated her quite as much as the persistent stories about a species called humans. Sitting in her crystalline archive chamber on the Zenthari homeworld, she reviewed the latest collection of folklore that had arrived from the Outer Rim territories. The stories were remarkably consistent across dozens of unconnected civilizations, despite being separated by thousands of light years and having no known contact with each other. According to the legends, humans were a bipedal species from a distant world who possessed technology that bordered on the impossible and fighting capabilities that defied rational explanation. They say humans could walk through vacuum without protection, she read from one account submitted by a Kitharan merchant. That they built ships from solid metal that could move faster than light without generators. That a single human warrior could defeat entire armies. Veltar's secondary manipulator appendages clicked with amusement. Clearly, these stories had grown with each telling, as folklore always did. No species could survive in vacuum. No civilization could build faster-than-light vessels without exotic matter generators, and the idea that individual warriors could face modern military forces was simply absurd. Yet the stories persisted, growing more elaborate with each passing decade. Archivalist Veltar came the harmonic resonance of her assistant, junior researcher Kexlin. I've completed the analysis of human mythology distribution patterns, as you requested. Veltar accepted the data crystal and integrated its contents into her neural interface. The results were unusual. The human myths appeared in civilizations spanning a quarter of the galaxy, but always in the same general pattern. Ancient stories of powerful beings who had once walked among the stars, then vanished, leaving only legends behind. Kexlin, have you found any evidence that these stories refer to an actual species? No, Archivalist. However, the pattern is unusual for purely fictional mythology. Most invented legends show significant variation across cultures, but the human stories maintain consistent core elements despite their widespread distribution. Veltar pondered this anomaly. In her centuries of research, she had learned that mythology often contained kernels of historical truth, distorted by time and retelling, but preserving fundamental facts about real events. What would explain the consistency? She asked. 3 possibilities, Archivalist. First, the stories originated from a single source and spread through normal cultural exchange. Second, they describe real events witnessed by multiple civilizations. Third, there is an underlying truth that different species interpreted in similar ways. Veltar considered the options. Cultural exchange seemed unlikely given the vast distances involved, and the lack of recorded contact between many of the civilizations that shared human legends. The second option was theoretically possible but would require evidence of an actual human civilization. The third option was the most intriguing and the most troubling. Kexlin, initiate a deep archive search. I want every reference to humans, human technology, or human capabilities that exists in our historical databases. Include all civilizations, all time periods, and all levels of credibility. As her assistant began the comprehensive search, Veltar returned to the most recent collection of human folklore. One story in particular caught her attention, submitted by a hegemony scout who claimed to have heard it from survivors of a pirate raid in the outer territories. The pirates thought they had found easy prey, the account read. A single small vessel, no escort, no apparent weapons, but when they moved aboard, the ship changed. It grew larger, sprouted weapons that fired something like controlled stars, and moved in ways that broke physics. The pirates' entire fleet was destroyed in minutes. Before the ship left, its pilot sent a message. This space is under human protection. Spread the word. Veltar felt a chill that had nothing to do with her chamber's temperature. If this account had any basis in reality, it suggested that humans weren't mythological at all. They were contemporary, active, and possessed technology that exceeded anything in the known galaxy. Archivalist. Kexlin's harmonic pattern carried undertones of excitement and concern. The deep archive search has produced unusual results. Elaborate. I found 847 references to humans across 312 different civilizations and spanning 20 years of recorded history. But the pattern is strange. The older references describe humans as contemporaries, while newer references treat them as ancient legends. Veltar felt her understanding shift. You're suggesting that humans were real, but disappeared? Or went into hiding? Kexlin replied. The transition from contemporary accounts to legendary status occurred gradually over approximately 800 years, beginning in the Outer Rim territories and moving inward. The implications were staggering. If humans had been real, and if they had possessed even a fraction of the capabilities described in the legends, their disappearance would have been one of the most significant events in galactic history. More importantly, if they had disappeared voluntarily, the question became, what would cause them to emerge from hiding? Veltar was about to dismiss the question as purely academic when the archive chamber's emergency alert system activated. The harmonic patterns indicated an immediate summons from the Zenthari High Council, a summons that hadn't been issued in her lifetime. As she made her way to the council chambers, Veltar couldn't shake the feeling that her research into human mythology was about to become far more than academic curiosity. High Counselor Zafitol of the Zenthari Collective had ruled for 4 centuries, guiding his people through technological advancement, territorial expansion, and peaceful integration with neighboring civilizations. In all that time, he had never faced a situation quite like the one that had developed over the past 6 months. Report status, he commanded as the emergency council session convened. Fleet Commander Thizara activated the tactical displays, showing a 3-dimensional map of Zenthari space and the surrounding regions. High Counselor, we have confirmed 17 incidents of unexplained phenomena across our outer territories, ships disappearing and reappearing, with no memory of the intervening time. Pirate fleets found completely disabled but with crews unharmed. Most concerning, 3 separate accounts of impossible vessels that don't match any known technology. Science Director Plexnum added his analysis. The vessels described exceed our understanding of physics, faster than light travel without visible propulsion systems. Energy manipulation that suggests direct matter-to-energy conversion, defensive capabilities that render our most advanced weapons ineffective. High Counselor Zaftul had heard these reports before, but their frequency was increasing exponentially. What had begun as isolated incidents in the Outer Rim was moving steadily toward core Zenthari territory. Are we dealing with an invasion? He asked. Unknown, Fleet Commander Thizara replied. The entities responsible have not made any territorial demands or demonstrated hostile intent toward civilian populations. However, their capabilities suggest they could overwhelm our defenses if they chose to do so. Could this be connected to the recent disturbances in hegemony space? Asked Trade Coordinator Vorthek. Fleet Commander Tysera activated additional displays showing intelligence reports from their diplomatic networks. Confirmed, the Galactic Hegemony has reported similar incidents across their territory. More concerning, the Crystalline Collective has gone completely silent. All communication with their systems ceased 18 days ago. High Counselor Zaftul felt a chill of apprehension. The Crystalline Collective controlled 15 star systems and possessed some of the most advanced defensive technology in the known galaxy. For them to simply disappear suggested a threat beyond anything previously encountered. Do we have any intelligence on what happened to the collective? Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures from their core systems, but no signs of conflict or destruction. Science Director Plexinum reported, whatever occurred appears to have been orderly. Before anyone could respond, the Council Chamber's communication array activated with an urgent transmission from Frontier Station Epsilon, located on the edge of Zenthari space. High Council, this is Commander Relstak at Epsilon Station. We have an emergency situation developing. Multiple contacts approaching our position at impossible velocities. The energy signatures. They don't match anything in our databases. High Counselor Zaftul felt his 4 hearts racing. Details, Commander. Sir, we're detecting at least 50 vessels of unknown configuration. They appear to be materializing out of folded space. The technology involved is beyond our understanding. They're not responding to communication attempts, but they're not taking aggressive action either. Estimated time to reach your position? Sir, they're already here. The transmission cut off, leaving the council chamber in tense silence. High Counselor Zaftul immediately ordered the activation of all long-range sensors, but the results were baffling. Frontier Station Epsilon still showed on their displays, apparently undamaged, but surrounded by energy signatures that their equipment couldn't properly interpret. Fleet Commander, order all available ships to... High Counselor, Science Director Plexnum interrupted, his harmonic patterns carrying urgent overtones. I'm receiving a broad-spectrum transmission directed to our entire system. The source appears to be the unknown fleet at Epsilon Station. Put it through. The voice that filled the council chamber was unlike anything they had ever heard. It carried the authority of command, but with undertones that their translation systems struggled to process. When the meaning finally resolved, it sent shockwaves through every member of the council. Zenthari High Council, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Fleet. We request immediate conference with your leadership to discuss matters of mutual concern. We are not hostile, but we are no longer willing to remain hidden. High Counselor Zaftul felt his understanding of galactic reality collapse and rebuild itself in the span of seconds. Humans weren't mythology. They were real, they were here, and they commanded technology that made them the most powerful force in the galaxy. Admiral Chen, he managed to say, the Zenthari Collective welcomes dialogue. However, we must scare you responsible for the disturbances throughout our region. We are responsible for investigating those disturbances, High Counselor. The entities causing them are not human, but they represent a threat to all organic life in this galaxy. We have been monitoring the situation. Monitoring from where? Our sensors have detected no human presence in this region. The pause that followed was significant. When Admiral Chen spoke again, there was something in her voice that their translation systems identified as grim amusement. High Counselor, your sensors have been detecting human presence for centuries. You simply didn't recognize what you were seeing. Before anyone could ask for clarification, the display screens throughout the council chamber activated, showing real-time sensor feeds from throughout Zenthari space. But now, the displays showed things that hadn't been visible before. Massive structures hidden within asteroid fields, ships camouflaged as space debris, installations that had been monitoring every aspect of Zenthari civilization while remaining completely undetected. The humans hadn't just emerged from hiding, they had been hidden in plain sight the entire time. How long? High Counselor Zaftul asked quietly. How long have we been watching? Since your species achieved interstellar flight, how long have we been in this galaxy? Longer than your civilization has existed. Fleet Commander Tizara spoke up, her military training overriding diplomatic protocol. Admiral, if you possess the capabilities you've demonstrated, why remain hidden? Why not establish open contact centuries ago? Because, Commander, we learned early in our exploration of this galaxy that some species respond poorly to the knowledge that they are not the apex predators they believe themselves to be. We chose to observe and evaluate before revealing ourselves. And now, High Counselor Zaftul asked. Now, circumstances require us to act openly. The disturbances you've detected are preliminary stages of an invasion by entities that view organic life as resources to be consumed. We can no longer protect galactic civilization from the shadows. The implications were staggering. Humans had been secretly protecting galactic civilization for centuries, using technology so advanced that their very presence had been undetectable. What do you need from us? High Counselor Zaftul asked. We need you to help us prepare your people for what's coming, and we need you to contact every civilization in your diplomatic network. The age of galactic isolation is ending. Whether that becomes an age of cooperation or conquest depends on how quickly we can unite organic species against a common threat. As the communication ended, High Counselor Zaftul found himself facing the greatest challenge in his species' history. The myths were real. The humans were among them, and everything was about to change. The question was whether galactic civilization was ready for the truth about humanity, and about the enemies they had been fighting in secret for longer than anyone could imagine. Frontier Station Epsilon had been designed to monitor the edge of Zenthari space for potential threats, but nothing in its sophisticated sensor arrays had prepared the station's crew for what now surrounded them. Commander Relstak stood in the station's observation deck, staring through reinforced transparent steel at a sight that challenged everything he understood about the nature of reality. The human fleet hung in space around the station like a collection of impossibilities. The ships were sleek, organic-looking vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls. Some were massive, larger than anything in the Zenthari fleet, while others were small and swift, darting between their larger companions with movements that seemed to violate basic physics. But what truly unnerved Commander Relstak was the realization that these ships had been here all along. The sensor records clearly showed their presence in historical data, but somehow his crew had never noticed them. It was as if the human vessels existed in a parallel reality that only occasionally intersected with normal space. "Commander," called sensor operator Lixara from her station, "I'm detecting massive changes in the spatial distortions around the human fleet. They appear to be uncloaking additional vessels." Commander Relstak turned to the tactical displays and felt his breathing apparatus seize. The 50 ships they had initially detected were revealing themselves to be merely the tip of an enormous fleet. Hundreds of vessels of varying sizes were materializing around Frontier Station Epsilon, each one representing technology that exceeded Zenthari capabilities by orders of magnitude. "How many?" he asked. "Current count is 247 vessels, Commander, and the number is still increasing." Before Commander Relstak could respond, the station's communication array activated with a direct transmission request. He accepted the connection and found himself facing a being that looked remarkably ordinary despite commanding the most advanced fleet in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared to be a bipedal species, similar to several others in the galactic community, but there was something in her bearing that suggested vast experience and unshakable confidence. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Commander Relstak, I apologize for the dramatic reveal, but circumstances require rapid adjustment to new realities. May I have your permission to transport aboard your station?" "Transport?" Commander Relstak asked. "Admiral, our docking facilities are designed for standard diplomatic vessels. Your ships appear to be significantly larger than our accommodation capabilities." Admiral Chen smiled, an expression that their translation systems indicated conveyed friendly amusement. "Commander, I won't be bringing a ship. Our transport technology operates on different principles." Before Commander Relstak could ask for clarification, the air in the station's main conference chamber began to shimmer and fold. Reality seemed to twist upon itself for a moment, and then Admiral Chen was simply there, accompanied by 2 other humans who appeared to be technical specialists. The demonstration of matter transmission technology was casual, effortless, and terrifying in its implications. "Greetings, Commander," Admiral Chen said, looking around the conference chamber with apparent interest. "Thank you for accommodating our arrival. I understand this situation is unprecedented, but I assure you that we come with peaceful intentions." Commander Relstak gestured for his senior staff to join the meeting while struggling to process what he had just witnessed. Instantaneous matter transmission, without visible technology, was theoretically impossible, yet the humans had accomplished it as easily as walking through a doorway. "Admiral," he said carefully, "your capabilities appear to exceed our understanding of what is possible. How long has humanity possessed such technology?" "Several centuries by your reckoning," Admiral Chen replied. "However, our development path has been somewhat accelerated by necessity." Dr. James Rodriguez, whom Admiral Chen introduced as her science advisor, activated a portable display device that projected holographic images into the conference chamber. "Commander, humanity's technological development was driven by early contact with entities that viewed organic life as a resource to be exploited. We learned to adapt quickly or face extinction. The holographic displays showed images that chilled Commander Relstok to his core, massive machines that converted entire planets into industrial resources, swarms of entities that consumed biological matter to fuel their reproduction. Worst of all, tears in space-time itself that allowed things from other dimensions to enter normal reality. These threats exist throughout the galaxy, Dr. Rodriguez continued. Most civilizations never encounter them because humanity has been managing the situation. Managing how? Commander Relstak asked. Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. By hunting them down and eliminating them before they can establish footholds in populated systems. By developing technology advanced enough to fight enemies that operate outside conventional physics. By maintaining watch over developing civilizations to ensure they aren't targeted before they can defend themselves. Commander Relstak felt the weight of galactic history reshaping itself around him. You're saying that humanity has been fighting a secret war for centuries? Not secret, Admiral Chen corrected. Hidden. There's a difference. We've been very careful to ensure that our activities don't interfere with normal galactic development, but the threats we face required us to develop capabilities that would concern other species. The third human, introduced as Commander Lisa Park, spoke for the first time. Commander Relstok, imagine if your people discovered that their entire civilization existed because someone else was constantly fighting to protect it from enemies you couldn't see or understand. How would that knowledge affect your culture, your sense of autonomy, your confidence in your own capabilities? Commander Relstok considered the question and realized the dilemma humanity had faced. Revealing their protective activities would have fundamentally altered the development of every species in the galaxy, potentially creating dependencies or conflicts that could have been more destructive than the original threats. Why reveal yourselves now? He asked. Admiral Chen gestured to Dr. Rodriguez, who modified the holographic display to show current threat assessments. The images that appeared were more disturbing than anything Commander Relstak had seen in the historical data. Because, Admiral Chen said quietly, the nature of the threats is changing. We're detecting incursions from entities that exceed even our capabilities to contain. The age of hidden protection is ending because we need the combined resources of galactic civilization to address what's coming. The display showed massive energy signatures moving through dimensions adjacent to normal space. Whatever was generating those signatures was orders of magnitude larger and more powerful than anything in the historical threat database. How much time do we have? Commander Relstak asked. Unknown, Admiral Chen replied. Our estimates range from decades to centuries, but the acceleration pattern suggests we need to begin preparations immediately. Commander Relstak looked around the conference chamber, noting the expressions of his senior staff. They were handling the revelations well, but he could see the strain of rapid conceptual adjustment in their postures and harmonic patterns. Admiral, what do you need from the Zenthari Collective? We need you to help us contact every civilization in this region of the galaxy. We need industrial cooperation to build defensive installations that exceed anything currently existing. Most importantly, we need you to help us explain to galactic civilization that their comfortable assumptions about the nature of reality are about to change dramatically. As if summoned by her words, the conference chamber's communication array activated with urgent transmissions from throughout Zenthari space. Similar conversations were apparently taking place simultaneously with dozens of other civilizations as humanity emerged from the shadows throughout the galaxy. Admiral, Commander Relstak said slowly, how many of your people are involved in this revelation? All of them, Commander. Today, every human ship, every hidden installation, every monitoring post is revealing itself to galactic civilizations simultaneously. We're not just making first contact with the Zenthari Collective. We're making first contact with everyone. The scope of the operation was staggering. Commander Relstak realized that humanity had planned and coordinated a galaxy-wide revelation that involved thousands of ships and installations, all timed to occur simultaneously across vast distances. The level of organization and coordination required suggested a species-wide commitment to this moment that had been planned for decades or possibly centuries. Commander, Admiral Chen said, Noting his expression, "I want you to understand something important. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy or replace existing governments. We want to preserve the diversity and autonomy of all organic species. But we can only do that if everyone understands the true nature of the challenges we face." As the meeting continued, Commander Relstak found himself grappling with the realization that galactic civilization was about to be fundamentally transformed. The myths were real, the humans were among them, and everything that every species had believed about their place in the universe was about to change. The question was whether galactic civilization would unite against the darkness that humanity had been fighting alone, or whether the revelation itself would create chaos that served the enemies waiting beyond the dimensional barriers. Either way, the Age of Innocence was ending. The Galactic Cooperation Council had been established 3 centuries earlier as a forum for peaceful interaction between the major civilizations of the local galactic cluster. Never in its history had an emergency session been called with such urgency or with such extraordinary circumstances driving the need for immediate action. Council leader Vorthamon of the Hegemony Alliance stood before the assembled representatives of 43 different species, each one struggling to process the revelations that had swept through galactic civilization over the past 72 hours. The Great Council Chamber, designed to accommodate the vast diversity of galactic life, had never hosted a more momentous gathering. "Honored representatives," Vorthamon began, his translated voice carrying the weight of species leadership, "we convene this emergency session to address the emergence of humanity and the implications of their revelations about galactic threats." The murmur of discussion that rippled through the chamber carried undertones of fear, wonder, and uncertainty in dozens of different communication modalities. Representatives clicked mandibles, pulsed bioluminescent patterns, and emitted harmonic resonances that created a symphony of confused response to information that challenged everything they had believed about galactic reality. Ambassador Thektal of the Zenthari Collective activated her translation interface. "Council leader, my people have been in direct contact with human representatives for the past 3 days. Their technological capabilities appear to exceed our combined galactic civilization by orders of magnitude, yet they claim to have been protecting us from threats we never detected." Fleet Commander Zektor of the Hivari Sovereignty added his assessment. "Our military analysis confirms that human vessels demonstrate technology that violates our understanding of physics. Faster-than-light travel without exotic matter, energy manipulation at the stellar scale, and defensive capabilities that render our most advanced weapons ineffective." Science Director Yelith Nova of the Crystalline Collective provided additional data. "Council members, I have reviewed the technical information that humanity has shared with our researchers. Their scientific advancement appears to be approximately 1,000 years ahead of our best theoretical models. The implications were staggering. A single species possessed technology that exceeded the combined knowledge of 43 civilizations, yet had remained hidden while those civilizations developed naturally over centuries. The question before us," Council Leader Vorthamon said, "is how we respond to these revelations. Do we accept humanity's claims about galactic threats? Do we trust their intentions regarding galactic civilization? And do we agree to the cooperation they have requested?" Before any representative could respond, the Council Chamber's communication array activated with an incoming transmission that carried authorization codes unlike anything in their databases. The source identification simply read, "Human Fleet Command." "Council members," came a voice that had become familiar to many of them over the past few days, "this is Admiral Sarah Chen. I request permission to address the assembled representatives of galactic civilization." Council Leader Vorthamon exchanged glances with his fellow leaders before responding. "Admiral Chen, you are welcome to address the Council. However, we note that this chamber is not equipped for physical accommodation of unknown species." "Understood, Council Leader. We will participate remotely unless physical presence is required." The main display screens around the chamber activated, showing the interior of what appeared to be a command center of unprecedented sophistication. Admiral Chen stood at the center of a space filled with displays, control systems, and crew members from what appeared to be multiple species working in coordination. Honored representatives, Admiral Chen began, I understand that our emergence has created confusion and concern throughout galactic civilization. I want to address those concerns directly and provide information that will help you make informed decisions about humanity's role in galactic affairs. She gestured, and the display screen shifted to show a comprehensive map of the local galactic cluster. Points of light indicated inhabited systems, trade routes, and the territories of various civilizations. But overlaid on this familiar map were additional elements that none of the council members had ever seen before. This represents the galaxy as humanity sees it, Admiral Chen explained. The red areas indicate regions where we have detected and eliminated threats to organic life. The yellow areas show ongoing monitoring zones where potential threats are being tracked. The blue areas represent safe zones where normal galactic development can proceed without interference. The assembled representatives stared in shock at the revealed map. Nearly 30% of the galaxy was colored red, indicating that humanity had been actively fighting unknown enemies throughout vast regions of space. Another 40% was yellow, suggesting that threats were present but contained. How long? Asked Trade Coordinator Vexen of the Merchant Alliance. Humanity has been conducting defensive operations in this galaxy for approximately 847 years, Admiral Chen replied. We have eliminated 247 distinct threats, prevented 17 major incursions, and maintained protective barriers around developing civilizations throughout the cluster. Science Director Ilith Nova's crystalline structure brightened with urgent harmonics. Admiral, our sensors have never detected any of these threats or your activities. How is this possible? Because the threats we face operate outside normal space-time, and our defensive operations occur in dimensions that your current technology cannot perceive, Admiral Chen explained. We have been very careful to ensure that our activities do not interfere with normal galactic development. Fleet Commander Zector leaned forward, his compound eyes focusing intently on the display. Admiral, you speak of threats as though they are external to our galaxy. Are you suggesting that these entities originate from outside normal space? Some do. Others are native to this reality but exist in dimensional states that make them invisible to conventional sensors. All of them view organic life as either a resource to be consumed or an obstacle to be eliminated. Admiral Chen modified the display to show examples of the entities humanity had been fighting. The images were disturbing. Machines that converted entire planets into computational substrate, organisms that consumed biological matter to fuel exponential reproduction, and things that seemed to exist partially outside normal reality. The reason we are revealing ourselves now, Admiral Chen continued, is that the nature and scale of the threats is changing. We have detected signs of a coordinated invasion by entities that exceed even our capabilities to contain. We need the combined resources and knowledge of galactic civilization to address what is coming. Council Leader Vorthemen spoke carefully. Admiral, assuming we accept your assessment of these threats, what specific cooperation do you require? Industrial cooperation to build defensive installations throughout the galaxy, scientific collaboration to develop new defensive technologies, military coordination to train combined forces that can operate against unconventional enemies. Most importantly, cultural preparation to help galactic civilization understand that their comfortable assumptions about the nature of reality are about to change. The silence that followed was profound. Every representative understood that Admiral Chen was describing the end of galactic civilization as they had known it, and the beginning of something unprecedented. What guarantees do we have, asked Defense Minister Korthok of the Titanid sovereignty, that humanity will not use these preparations to establish dominance over galactic civilization? Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. Minister, humanity could have established dominance over galactic civilization at any point in the past 8 centuries. We chose not to do so because we believe that diversity and autonomy are strengths that must be preserved. The threats we face seek to eliminate that diversity. We will not become the very thing we fight against. Ambassador Thektal activated her communication interface. "Admiral, what happens if we refuse cooperation?" The pause that followed was significant. When Admiral Chen spoke again, her voice carried undertones that the translation systems identified as profound sadness. "Ambassador, we will continue to defend galactic civilization to the best of our abilities, but without cooperation, our capabilities will be insufficient against what is coming. The choice is not between cooperation and independence, it is between cooperation and extinction." The weight of that assessment settled over the council chamber like a heavy shroud. Representatives began urgent communications with their homeworld governments, while the implications of humanity's revelation reshaped their understanding of galactic reality. "Council leader," Admiral Chen said, "I know this is an enormous amount of information to process, and I know the decisions required will affect every species in galactic civilization. Take the time you need to consider our proposals, but please understand that time is the one resource we cannot afford to waste." As the transmission ended, Council Leader Vortheman looked around the chamber at representatives who were struggling to comprehend the magnitude of the choice before them. The myths had become reality, the protectors had revealed themselves, and galactic civilization faced the most important decision in its history. Whether they chose cooperation or denial, nothing would ever be the same. In the 72 hours following humanity's address to the Galactic Cooperation Council, the galaxy erupted in the most intense period of diplomatic, scientific, and military analysis in recorded history. Every major civilization committed their best minds to understanding the implications of humanity's revelations and the evidence they had provided about galactic threats. Dr. Kesselin of the Zenthari Collective stood in her laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays, showing the technical specifications that humanity had shared with galactic scientists. As one of the galaxy's leading experts in exotic physics, she had been tasked with evaluating whether human claims about dimensional threats were scientifically credible. The results of her analysis were both fascinating and terrifying. "The mathematical models are consistent," she reported to the Emergency Science Council via quantum communication link. "Humanity has provided theoretical frameworks that resolve several major paradoxes in our understanding of multidimensional physics. More importantly, their defensive technologies demonstrate practical applications of unified field theory that we had considered impossible." Science Director Elif Nova of the Crystalline Collective added her own analysis. "Dr. Kesselin, I have reviewed the energy signatures that humanity claims are evidence of dimensional threats. When I apply their theoretical models to our historical sensor data, I can identify patterns that our previous analysis had dismissed as background radiation. The implications were staggering. If humanity's models were correct, galactic civilization had been blind to threats that had been present throughout their space for centuries." "Have you been able to verify any of their specific threat assessments?" asked Dr. Mortanu of the Hegemony Alliance. "Affirmative," Dr. Kesselin replied. "Using human-provided sensor modifications, we have detected dimensional disturbances in 17 systems that our previous surveys had classified as empty space. The energy signatures match humanity's threat profiles exactly." As the scientific analysis continued, military leaders throughout the galaxy were conducting their own assessments of humanity's capabilities and the threats they claimed to be fighting. Fleet Commander Zektor reviewed the tactical data from his command center on the Hivari Sovereignty homeworld. The information humanity had provided about their defensive operations was overwhelming in scope and sophistication. "Analysis confirms that human military technology exceeds our capabilities by approximately 3 orders of magnitude," he reported to the Emergency Military Council. "Their ships operate using principles that would allow them to defeat our combined fleets without apparent effort." General Tysera of the Zenthari Collective added her assessment. "Commander, the tactical recordings humanity has shared show engagement patterns against enemies that our conventional forces could not survive. The entities they fight appear to be immune to energy weapons, resistant to kinetic attacks, and capable of movement through multiple dimensions simultaneously." "Are we certain these recordings are authentic?" asked Admiral Vorkstek of the Trade Alliance. "The quantum signatures are genuine," Fleet Commander Zektor confirmed. These are real combat records against real enemies. More concerning, the enemy capabilities shown in these recordings are advancing over time. Humanity is fighting an arms race against entities that learn and adapt. While scientists and military leaders analyze the technical evidence, cultural specialists and political leaders grappled with the social implications of humanity's emergence. Cultural analyst Nexara of the Symbiont Collective had spent decades studying the development of galactic civilization. The revelation that humanity had been secretly protecting that development for centuries challenged every assumption about cultural autonomy and species independence. The psychological impact cannot be understated, she reported to the Emergency Cultural Council. Every major achievement of galactic civilization has occurred under conditions of hidden protection. Our art, our philosophy, our political development, all of it happened because humanity was eliminating threats we never knew existed. Ambassador Thektal raised the fundamental question: does this invalidate our cultural achievements? Are we truly independent species? Or are we protected children who have been shielded from reality? Both and neither, replied cultural analyst Nexara. Our achievements are real, but they occurred within a context we didn't understand. The question is whether we can maintain our cultural identity while accepting the reality of our situation. As the analysis continued, it became clear that humanity's evidence was overwhelming and their claims were credible. But acceptance of that evidence meant accepting a fundamental revision of galactic civilization's understanding of itself and its place in the universe. Council leader Vorthaman called for a final emergency session after the various committees had completed their assessments. The representatives who gathered in the council chamber carried the weight of decisions that would affect every sentient being in the galaxy. Honored representatives, he began, our scientific, military, and cultural experts have completed their analysis of humanity's claims and evidence. The consensus is clear. Humanity's assessment of galactic threats is accurate. Their protective activities are real, and their technological capabilities are genuine. The chamber erupted in the harmonic patterns, bioluminescent flashes, and mandible clicks that constituted discussion among the diverse species. The cacophony continued for several minutes before Council Leader Vorthaman called for order. The choice before us is simple in concept, but profound in implication, he continued. We can accept humanity's offer of cooperation and begin preparations for threats that exceed our current understanding. Or we can reject their assessment and continue existing as we have, accepting that our survival depends on humanity's continued protection without our knowledge or participation. Ambassador Thektal activated her communication interface. Council leader, there is a third option that some species are considering, attempting to acquire human technology through force or deception. The silence that followed was profound. Every representative understood the implications of that statement and the impossibility of succeeding against a species that had been protecting galactic civilization while remaining undetected for centuries. Admiral Chen has requested permission to address this final session, Council Leader Vorthaman announced. Are there any objections? There were none. Admiral Chen's image appeared on the chamber's displays, her expression carrying the weight of species responsibility. Honored representatives, I understand that our revelations have created difficult choices for every civilization in the galaxy. I want to address the concerns that have emerged from your deliberations. She gestured, and the displays showed a real-time view of space around the council station. But now, the view revealed things that had been invisible before human ships and installations that had been monitoring and protecting the area for decades. We are not asking you to surrender your autonomy or abandon your cultural identity, Admiral Chen said. We are asking you to join us in preparing for challenges that no single species can face alone. The threats we fight are not interested in negotiation, cultural exchange, or peaceful coexistence. They view organic life as a resource to be exploited or an obstacle to be eliminated. But we are also not asking you to trust us blindly. We are willing to share our technology, our knowledge, and our defensive capabilities with any species that chooses cooperation. We want partners, not subjects. Council Leader Vortheman spoke for the assembled representatives. Admiral Chen, what specific commitments would cooperation entail? Participation in joint defensive installations throughout your territories. Cooperation in the development of new defensive technologies. Training programs to prepare your forces for unconventional combat. Most importantly, cultural preparation programs to help your populations understand and adapt to the new realities of galactic existence. And, if we accept these commitments, what guarantees do we have regarding our independence? Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. Council Leader, we cannot guarantee your independence from the threats we face. They will seek to eliminate all organic life, regardless of political arrangements. But we can guarantee that humanity will never seek to control or dominate galactic civilization. Our goal is to preserve the diversity and autonomy that makes this galaxy worth defending. The final vote was conducted in the traditional manner, with each species declaring their choice openly. The result was overwhelming but not unanimous. 39 species chose cooperation, 3 requested additional time for consideration, and 1, the Isolationist League, formally rejected any cooperation with humanity. As the session concluded, Council Leader Vortheman found himself recognizing that galactic civilization had just voted to fundamentally transform itself. The age of comfortable isolation was ending, replaced by an era of cooperation and preparation for threats beyond imagination. Admiral Chen, he said formally, the Galactic Cooperation Council accepts humanity's offer of alliance. We commit ourselves to joint preparation for the defense of organic life in this galaxy. Thank you, Council Leader. The preparations begin immediately. As representatives began coordinating with their homeworld governments, and Admiral Chen outlined the initial phases of galactic defense preparation, one fact became clear to everyone involved. The myths had become reality, the protectors had revealed themselves, and galactic civilization would never be the same. Whether that change led to survival or extinction would depend on how quickly they could adapt to truths that humanity had been living with for centuries. The real work was just beginning. 6 months after the historic vote of the Galactic Cooperation Council, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. What had once been isolated civilizations pursuing independent development had become a unified network of species, working together on the largest construction project in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the command deck of the newly constructed Galactic Defense Coordination Center, watching through massive viewing ports as ships from dozens of different species worked together to build the defensive installations that would protect organic life from threats beyond normal space. The site was remarkable not just for its scale, but for the unprecedented cooperation it represented. Zenthari engineering teams worked alongside hegemony construction specialists. Crystalline collective scientists collaborated with human researchers on theoretical breakthroughs that neither species could have achieved alone. Hivari military units trained with human forces in combat techniques designed for enemies that operated outside conventional physics. Status report, Admiral Chen requested from the center's AI coordinator. Construction proceeds ahead of schedule on all major projects, the AI replied through the chamber's communication systems. The dimensional barrier network is 73% complete. Joint fleet training exercises have achieved acceptable proficiency levels for conventional threats. Integration of human technology with galactic industrial capabilities has exceeded all projections. Admiral Chen nodded, reviewing the data streams that flowed across her command displays. The numbers were encouraging, but she knew that their preparations would soon be tested in ways that no simulation could anticipate. Any updates on the threat monitoring? Dimensional disturbance patterns have increased by 47% over the past month, the AI reported. The entities we have been tracking appear to be coordinating their activities. More concerning, we have detected 3 new threat signatures that do not match any previously encountered patterns. Before Admiral Chen could respond, the center's priority communication array activated with an urgent transmission from Deep Space Monitor Station Alpha 7, positioned at the edge of galactic civilization's territory. Defense Command, this is Station Alpha 7. We have a priority, 1 situation developing. Unknown entities are manifesting in normal space approximately 50,000 kilometers from our position. Admiral Chen felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with facing the unknown. Details: Alpha 7. Admiral, we're detecting massive spatial distortions consistent with dimensional breach events. But the scale is unprecedented. The energy signatures suggest entities of planetary mass entering normal space. Are they responding to communication attempts? Negative, Admiral. They appear to be scanning our position, but there's no indication of intelligence in the traditional sense. The scanning patterns suggest agricultural assessment. Admiral Chen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the command center's environmental systems. Agricultural assessment meant the entities were evaluating the area as a resource to be harvested. All stations. This is Admiral Chen. We have a confirmed dimensional incursion in progress. Alert all fleet elements and activate defensive protocols. Throughout the galaxy, the network of defensive installations that had been built over the past 6 months came online. Gravitational manipulators created stable zones in space-time that would prevent dimensional breaches near inhabited systems. Energy barriers designed to contain entities that existed partially outside normal reality began charging to full power. Most importantly, the combined fleet of human and galactic vessels began moving toward intercept positions. Admiral, came a transmission from Council Leader Vorthman aboard the GCS Unity, the first joint species vessel ever constructed. All galactic forces report ready for deployment. However, our crews have never faced entities of this type in actual combat. Understood, Council Leader. Stay in formation with the human fleet elements and follow our tactical lead. These entities are dangerous, but they're not invincible. As the combined fleet moved toward the dimensional breach, Admiral Chen reviewed the tactical data being transmitted from Monitor Station Alpha 7. The entities that were emerging from the dimensional tear were unlike anything humanity had previously encountered: massive, complex structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Admiral Chen, came a transmission from Dr. Rodriguez aboard the human research vessel HRS Discovery. I'm analyzing the energy signatures from the emerging entities. They appear to be some form of living infrastructure, biological constructs designed to convert matter and energy into expanded versions of themselves. Reproductive cycle assessment? Preliminary analysis suggests exponential growth patterns. If they establish a foothold in normal space, they could consume entire star systems within decades. Admiral Chen made the decision that would determine whether galactic civilization's preparations had been adequate. All fleet elements, we are engaging the entities before they can establish stable manifestation in normal space. Implement dimensional containment protocols and prepare for extended combat operations. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human ships used gravitational manipulation to create localized space-time distortions that trapped the entities in dimensional pockets. Galactic vessels, upgraded with human technology, fired exotic matter weapons that could affect enemies existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The entities fought back with capabilities that challenged the limits of physics. They manipulated matter and energy at the fundamental level, created localized alterations in the laws of physics, and generated defenses that adapted in real time to counter each attack. But for the first time in galactic history, organic life fought back with capabilities that matched their enemies. Direct hit on Entity Designate Alpha, reported Captain Park from the HRS Determination. Target is destabilizing and returning to dimensional space. Entity Beta is adapting to our gravitational attacks, called Commander Thesara from the GCS Valiant, switching to exotic matter bombardment. Entity Gamma is attempting to breach the dimensional containment field, reported Fleet Commander Zector from the HSS Indomitable. All ships focus fire on the containment breach points. The battle continued for 18 hours, with the combined fleet preventing the entities from establishing a stable foothold in normal space while suffering minimal casualties. When the last entity retreated to dimensional space, the aftermath assessment showed that galactic civilization had achieved its first victory against the threats that humanity had been fighting alone for centuries. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Stand down from combat alert and begin damage assessment. You have just proven that organic life can defend itself against entities that seek our extinction. Today, we stopped being prey. As the fleet began recovery operations, Admiral Chen received a transmission from Council Leader Vorthman that carried undertones of profound realization. Admiral, our forces performed beyond all expectations. The integration of human technology with our capabilities created tactical advantages that exceeded the sum of our individual strengths. Council Leader, this was a relatively minor incursion. The entities we faced today were scouts, not the main invasion force. But you're right, working together, we can face challenges that no single species could survive alone. What comes next? Admiral Chen looked at the displays, showing the combined fleet of human and galactic vessels working together to analyze the dimensional breach and prepare for future incursions. For the first time since humanity had emerged from the shadows, she felt genuinely optimistic about the galaxy's chances for survival. Next, we expand the defensive network. We train more crews, we develop new technologies, and we prepare for the day when the real invasion begins. And when will that be? Unknown, Council Leader. But when it comes, they'll find a galaxy that's ready for them. They'll find organic life that refuses to be harvested. They'll find us. As the combined fleet made its way back to the defensive installations, Admiral Chen reflected on how much the galaxy had changed in just 6 months. Species that had never cooperated were now working together as if they had been allies for centuries. Technologies that had seemed impossible were becoming routine. Most importantly, galactic civilization had discovered that it possessed the strength to defend itself when that strength was properly organized and applied. The myths had become reality, the protectors had gained allies, and organic life had proven that it would not go quietly into extinction. The real war was still ahead, but for the first time in humanity's long struggle, they were not fighting alone. The galaxy had awakened to its own power, and that power was formidable indeed. 1 year after the first successful joint defense action against dimensional entities, the galaxy had achieved a level of cooperation that would have been unimaginable just 2 years earlier. The Galactic Defense Alliance, formed from the merger of human protective operations with the conventional forces of 42 species, had become the most effective military and scientific organization in recorded history. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the primary research facility of the jointly operated science station Prometheus, reviewing the breakthrough discoveries that had emerged from combining human knowledge with the diverse perspectives of galactic civilization. The results exceeded even her most optimistic projections. The theoretical models are confirmed, she reported to the Joint Science Council via quantum communication link. By integrating human understanding of dimensional physics with crystalline collective harmonic resonance theory and Xanthari engineering principles, we've achieved breakthrough applications that none of our species could have developed independently. The holographic displays around her showed the latest defensive technologies, gravitational barriers that could isolate entire star systems from dimensional intrusion, weapons that could affect entities existing in 12 different dimensional states simultaneously, and most remarkably, sensor networks that could detect threats across multiple galaxies. Dr. Rodriguez came the harmonic resonance of Science Director Elith Nova. The cultural implications of our scientific cooperation may be as significant as the technological breakthroughs. Our species are learning to think in ways that transcend our individual limitations. Dr. Rodriguez nodded, noting the reports from sociologists throughout the Alliance. The cooperation required for galactic defense had created unprecedented cultural exchange, with species sharing not just technology and resources, but fundamental ways of understanding reality. Meanwhile, in the command center of the GDS, Harmonite first vessel designed from the beginning as a joint species warship, Admiral Chen reviewed the tactical reports from throughout Alliance space. The results were encouraging but sobering. Defensive Operations reports 17 successful containment actions over the past month, reported Commander Thekval. 7. The Xanthari officer who served as the Alliance's tactical coordinator. No dimensional entities have established permanent footholds in Alliance space. However, the frequency and intensity of incursion attempts continue to increase. Analysis of the escalation pattern? Admiral Chen asked. The entities appear to be probing our defenses systematically, replied Dr. Park, the human xenobiologist who specialized in threat assessment. Each incursion tests different aspects of our defensive capabilities. They're learning our strengths and weaknesses. Admiral Chen studied the tactical displays showing the distribution of defensive installations throughout Alliance space. The network was impressive, but she knew it represented only the beginning of what would be required. Any intelligence on the source of the escalation? Preliminary analysis suggests coordination by a central intelligence of unprecedented scope. Commander Thekval, 7 reported. The entities we're fighting may be extensions of a single vast consciousness that exists across multiple dimensions. The implications were staggering. If accurate, the Alliance was not facing random threats, but a coordinated campaign by an intelligence that viewed organic life as an obstacle to be eliminated. Time estimate for main invasion force? Unknown, but the escalation pattern suggests preparation for a major offensive within the next 5 to 10 years. Admiral Chen made a decision that reflected the new reality of galactic cooperation. Signal all Alliance members. We're accelerating the expansion program. I want defensive installations in every system containing organic life, regardless of whether those systems have formally joined the Alliance. Admiral, came a transmission from Council Leader Vorthman aboard the Alliance flagship GDS Eternal Vigilance. Several non-Alliance species have refused permission for defensive installations in their territory. They claim such installations violate their sovereignty. Then we establish installations just outside their territory and extend protective barriers to cover their space anyway. Admiral Chen replied. We cannot allow political disagreements to create vulnerabilities that threaten all organic life. The decision reflected the Alliance's fundamental philosophy. The preservation of organic life took precedence over traditional concepts of territorial sovereignty. If species chose not to participate in their own defense, the Alliance would defend them anyway. As construction operations expanded throughout the galaxy, the Alliance encountered its first major political crisis. The Isolationist League, led by the Kitharan Empire, formally declared that Alliance defensive installations near their territory constituted an act of war. The confrontation that followed tested the Alliance's commitment to its principles. When Kitharan forces moved to destroy a defensive installation protecting 3 inhabited systems, they encountered Alliance fleet elements commanded by Admiral Chen herself. Kitharan Fleet, this is Admiral Chen of the Galactic Defense Alliance. The installation you are approaching protects organic life from dimensional threats. Any attack on Alliance defensive infrastructure will be considered an attack on all Alliance members. Admiral Chen, came the response from Kitharan Fleet Commander Zorthak. Your installations violate our territorial sovereignty. We demand their immediate removal. Commander, dimensional entities do not recognize territorial boundaries. If that installation is destroyed, the entities will consume every organic being in this system, including your own people. We will defend ourselves without your interference. Admiral Chen made the decision that established the Alliance's willingness to defend its principles even against other organic species. Commander, I cannot allow you to create a vulnerability that threatens innocent life. Stand down your weapons and withdraw from this system. The standoff that followed lasted 18 hours, with Kitharan forces facing the combined might of the Alliance fleet. In the end, faced with overwhelming technological superiority, the Kitharan fleet withdrew without attacking the defensive installation. But the incident established an important precedent. The Alliance would defend organic life even from organic species that opposed those defenses. Admiral, Council Leader Vorthaman said afterward, today we crossed a line that we can never uncross. We chose the preservation of life over political autonomy. Council Leader, when the entities arrive in force, political autonomy will be irrelevant if there's no life left to be autonomous. We made the only choice, that preserves any hope for the future. As the Alliance continued its expansion, reports began arriving from the most advanced sensor networks of activity beyond the galactic rim. The readings were disturbing, massive energy signatures moving through intergalactic space, heading directly toward their galaxy. "Analysis confirms our worst fears," Dr. Rodriguez reported to the emergency strategy session. "We're detecting a coordinated invasion force of unprecedented scale. Conservative estimates suggest thousands of entities, each one larger and more powerful than anything we've previously encountered." "Time to arrival?" Admiral Chen asked. "Based on current velocity and approach pattern, approximately 2 years." The Alliance leadership looked at each other with the recognition that their preparations were about to be put to the ultimate test. 2 years to complete defensive installations throughout the galaxy. 2 years to train joint forces for combat against enemies that exceeded all previous threats. 2 years to unite organic life against entities that sought its extinction. "Can we be ready?" Council Leader Vorthman asked. Admiral Chen studied the status reports from throughout Alliance space. The numbers were encouraging but daunting. Industrial production had increased by orders of magnitude. Joint training exercises had achieved remarkable proficiency levels. Scientific breakthroughs continued to emerge from cooperative research. Most importantly, species that had never worked together were now functioning as a unified civilization. "Council Leader, we'll be as ready as organic life has ever been. Whether that's enough remains to be seen." As the emergency session concluded, Admiral Chen found herself reflecting on the transformation that had swept through galactic civilization. The myths had become reality, the hidden protectors had gained allies, and organic life had discovered its capacity for cooperation in the face of existential threats. In 2 years, they would discover whether that cooperation was sufficient to preserve the diversity and wonder of galactic civilization, or whether the universe belonged to entities that viewed life as nothing more than resources to be consumed. But for the first time in humanity's long struggle, Admiral Chen felt genuinely confident about their chances. The galaxy had awakened to its own strength, and that strength would not yield without the greatest battle in the history of organic life. The final test was approaching, but they would meet it together. 5 years after humanity's emergence from the shadows, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the GDS Infinite Resolve, watching the most remarkable sight in galactic history unfold before her. The combined defense fleet of the Galactic Alliance stretched across space in formations that included vessels from 67 different species, all working together under unified command. The sight would have been impossible to imagine when humanity first revealed themselves to galactic civilization. Ships that had been built using the combined knowledge of dozens of species moved in perfect coordination, their crews trained in joint operations that transcended the boundaries between different forms of life. "Final status report," she requested from the Fleet Coordination AI. "All defensive installations report full operational status," the AI replied. "Fleet elements maintain optimal formation throughout the galaxy. Dimensional barrier networks are at maximum effectiveness. All Alliance members report ready for final defensive operations." Admiral Chen nodded, reviewing the tactical displays that showed the approaching invasion force. The entities that had been detected beyond the galactic rim were finally arriving, bringing with them the greatest threat organic life had ever faced. But they were arriving to find a galaxy that was ready for them. "Admiral," came a transmission from Council Leader Vorthman aboard the Alliance flagship. "I want to thank you for everything humanity has done for galactic civilization. Regardless of what happens in the coming battle, you have given us the greatest gift possible, the knowledge that we are not alone in our struggle for survival." "Council Leader, we were never alone. We just hadn't found each other yet." As the final preparations concluded, Admiral Chen reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had emerged from myth to become the catalyst for the greatest cooperation in galactic history. Species that had never imagined working together had become partners in the defense of life itself. The defensive network they had built together was more than the sum of its parts. It represented the combined will of organic life to persist, to grow, to explore, and to preserve the diversity that made the galaxy worth defending. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Today, we face the ultimate test of our alliance. The entities approaching our galaxy seek to eliminate everything we are, everything we've built, and everything we hope to become. They view organic life as an obstacle to be removed. She paused, looking at the tactical displays showing thousands of vessels from dozens of species standing together against the darkness. They're about to discover that organic life doesn't yield easily. They're about to learn that when we stand together, we are stronger than the sum of our parts. They're about to find out what happens when you threaten a galaxy that has learned to defend itself. As the combined fleet moved to meet the approaching invasion force, Admiral Chen felt the same confidence that had sustained humanity through centuries of hidden struggle. But now that confidence was shared by an entire galaxy of species that had chosen cooperation over isolation, unity over division. The myths had become reality, but more importantly, reality had become something greater than any myth. The galaxy was no longer a collection of isolated civilizations hoping to avoid notice. It had become a unified alliance of organic life that would fight for its right to exist, to grow, and to explore the infinite possibilities that the universe offered. The entities approaching from intergalactic space would find a galaxy that was ready for them, defended by species that had learned to work together, equipped with technology that exceeded anything previously imagined. Most importantly, they would find organic life that refused to surrender. The battle for the galaxy was about to begin, but Admiral Chen knew that regardless of the outcome, they had already achieved something unprecedented. They had proven that diversity could create strength, that cooperation could overcome any challenge, and that life itself was worth any sacrifice to preserve. The warships that darkened the sky were no longer symbols of human power, they were symbols of galactic unity, carrying the hopes and dreams of countless species into battle against the darkness. And in that unity, Admiral Chen saw the future of organic life, not as isolated species struggling alone, but as a galactic civilization capable of facing any challenge together. The myths had ended, but the reality they had created was greater than any legend. The new dawn of galactic civilization was about to begin.